Dust, rocks, high speeds, high fives, and x-rays. Summer is full of good times, and unfortunately some not so good times. But one thing's for certain, and that's that what works well in the gloom and doom of winter is not necessarily what works best for the sunscreen and corn dog days of summer. Oh, and don't ever get sunscreen in your eye. Don't. This video is made possible thanks to the support of my pals over at Jensen USA. Jensen is a leading online retailer of complete mountain bikes and all kinds of parts, accessories, and tools. A lot of the stuff I talk about in this video is actually free, if not very low cost. If you want to see it all, I've got it linked in the description below over to Jensen, and anything you purchase at Jensen will help out my channel as well. Ah yes, we all love summertime. The sun has finally made its glorious appearance. The trails don't have snow on them. The trees have sprouted their leaves and things are rolling nicely. Now, hopefully you're doing well. I've, for the third summer in a row, broken myself off. I've got a bum separated shoulder. I have like another month until I can ride mountain bikes again. For me, summer is starting to mean hiking, camping, housework, working on the bikes, basically anything but mountain biking. So don't be like me. Let's dive on into how to set up your mountain bike to best enjoy the summer conditions. The single biggest reason you need to do some bike work between winter and summer is speed. The dry, hard-packed trails of summer roll much faster than the soggy, sloppy wintertime trails. Unless, of course, you're Danny Hart, in which case you go the same speed year-round. I don't know about you, but I'm clearly not Danny Hart. For a good example of just how much the trails slow down in the wintertime, check out this GoPro footage and compare it to this footage. This is one of my favorite local trails here, and in the summertime, it's a rip-roaring fun trail. You can hold some good speed down, and they've even used it as a stage in an enduro race. In the wintertime, you're just struggling to make forwards progress, and if there wasn't an elevation chart, I would think it was uphill both ways. With that big increase in speed, you're gonna have a lot harsher impacts during your ride. You're gonna send jumps further, you're gonna be smashing through the rocks rather than slipping around them. As a result, your wheels are gonna take quite a pounding. The first thing we're gonna consider is tire choice. In the winter months, you wanna use a little bit narrower tire that can get through that soft, sloppy stuff and down to the firmer base layers. In addition, with how slow the trails are rolling, a little narrower tire is gonna roll just a little bit faster. Those narrower winter tires are often accompanied with taller, more aggressive knobs. Now, that's wonderful in the slop, but in the dry, hard-packed conditions of summer, those knobs are gonna work against you. When you go to corner and push hard, the knob itself is gonna flex over a lot, and that's gonna create a very vague feeling at the handlebar. Going to a slightly wider tire that has a little bit shorter knob height is gonna make for a much more confidence-inspiring ride. I do swap my tires between the winter and the summer months. Part of that is because I'm supported by WTB, but it's also one of the most cost-effective ways of dialing your bike in for the change in conditions. For example, in the winter months, I was riding a Verdict wet up front in the 2.5 width. In the rear, I was riding a Judge in the 2.4. Now that it's summer, I've gone to 2.6 width tires with a Vigilante up front and a Trail Boss in back. Another good example of tire choice could be from our friends over at Maxxis. Say in the winter months, you're running a Shorty up front with a DHR2 in back. That's a pretty good setup for riding in the winter. Now, when things dry out, you could benefit by going to an Ascii up front and then an Aggressor in the back. Free way to really dial your bike in for the seasons is tire pressure. So in the winter months, things are rolling so slow, you're just hunting for any traction on those wet roots, on the wet rocks, etc. I'm running as low as 20 PSI in front and 22 PSI in back for those really slippery winter days. When we get to summertime, going a lot faster, jumping much further, pushing a lot harder in the turns, and smashing into things with a lot more force. I'll air up the front tire to around 24 PSI, and I can get as high as 27 PSI in the back. Now, I will adjust this depending on how I'm feeling and what the day's conditions might be like, but as an example, I've gone 4 whole PSI firmer for the really dry days compared to the wettest of wet days. Another free, if not very low-cost way to dial your bike in for the seasons is the simple suspension setup. In the wintertime, you're running very open suspension so you can get any and all traction on the wet, slippery routes. Now in the summertime, when things are harder and rolling way faster, you've got bigger hits to worry about. You're over clearing jumps. You're smashing into rocks and such. you probably want to consider adding just a little bit of high-speed compression damping to avoid bottoming. If you still want some more support, you could look at volume reducers for your shock or for your fork. These make a significant difference in how hard it is to bottom the bike out. This is also a pretty geographically charged item. If you're someplace like Southern California that's super slippery in the summer months, you might want to consider going to a softer pressure with some reducers so that your bike can be more deeply sagged into the travel. In the wintertime, I'm almost always riding with a big hefty backpack on because I have a jacket in there, neoprene gloves, maybe even neoprene socks. Now, come the summer months, I don't need to worry about as many layers and all that, so I will actually ditch my backpack and do all I can to carry everything on the bike. If you haven't yet, trying to ride without a backpack is a very freeing experience, and it's nice to let your back cool off and breathe a little bit. Most modern bikes have a water bottle cage somewhere on them, and from those same two mounting holes, you can usually put a mini pump. Now, there's a bunch of ways to carry an inner tube on your bike as well as a multi-tool. The options are almost endless in this day and age. If you're riding an Ibis Mojo, for instance, Blackburn's made these awesome little pork chop bags that can easily fit an inner tube, a multi-tool, some quick links, maybe even a snack. It's a nice way of taking this much weight off your back and just breathing that much better. But you might want to invest in a belt because suddenly your backside's going to be a lot more visible. A quick, easy way to make your drivetrain feel a lot better is going to be with selecting the right kind of chain lube. In the winter months, you want to use a wet lube. In the summer months, you want to use a dry lube. In the summer months, I like to use something like the Rock and Roll Gold, which is, it's not advertised as a dry lube, but I found it to be very light, and on rides up to around 3 hours, this stuff does a great job of keeping the drivetrain running smooth, but it does not get caked with dust and gunk. In the winter months, I like to use this T9. These guys sent me this in the mail. They just reached out and said, hey, want some lube? I said, sure, lube me up. It works pretty darn well. We used to get this when I worked at Ibis. The stuff's solid. It's pretty thick and heavy though, so I prefer it in the winter months than in the summer. I want to be very real with you that a lot of this stuff changes depending on where you're located. So here in the Northwest, for instance, we have a lot of stinging nettles that'll grow in the summer months. So those dorky moto handguards I had last year, they were really, really nice. I'll often ride with arm warmers and full finger gloves when it's super hot out, just to avoid getting stung by all the nettles. Santa Cruz, where I'm from, we had to deal with tons of poison oak in the winter months, and lots of other locations have other challenges, so pay attention to what your buddies do when the seasons tend to change. I hope you can remember what I always forget. So a little bit of seriousness here. In the summer months, when things are super hard pack and rolling really fast, if you do happen to get a little bit of rain, it's gonna be a lot more slippery than wintertime. In the wintertime, the ground is very evenly saturated and therefore very soft. So sure, it's a little bit slick on the roots, but it's gonna be more consistently whereas in the summertime, you're gonna think you're doing great, and then all of a sudden, you're just gonna slide right off the trail, catapult yourself, and break your pelvis, break your shoulder, break your other shoulder. So if it does rain in the summertime, and if you can safely, responsibly ride your local trails without leaving a mark, maybe consider toning it down just a teeny tiny little bit. Wouldn't hurt. Learn from me, I'm covered in summertime injuries. I've got links below to a bunch of the stuff I talked about in this video. Jensen USA is a great supporter of everything I do. I've got an athlete page over there, which I also have linked to in the description below. Big thanks to Jensen USA. Anything you purchase from that site will also help out my channel as well. Thank you, Jensen. They've been an awesome supporter. If you found this video helpful, do me a solid, share it with your pals on Facebook, click that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what did I miss? What other ways are there to dial in your bike for the summer months? All right, well, I'll see you on the trails. Wait, no, I won't. I'm gonna be mostly off the trails for a few more weeks, but I will see you soon. All right, peace everyone.